No, I think we should bring in Jonathan Franks. He has been a critical player in so many of these releases and negotiations. Obviously, Jonathan, you were a big part of this when it came to Trevor Reed. And that is something, we're talking about Paul Whelan and the difficult decisions that a president has to make when it comes to a prisoner swap with Victor Bout and what this looks like. Experience of what these negotiations are like behind the scenes firsthand, how delicate, how sensitive they are. What can you tell us about your take on the fact that Brittany Griner is now coming home, something that is major news for her family and for the United States, but also the fact that Paul Whelan is not, from our understanding?
Well, good morning, Caitlin. Thanks for having me. Congrats on the new show. I think I'm at a place where I am overjoyed for Sherelle Griner, who I think is an incredibly impressive person whom I would never want to go up against in a courtroom. But at the same time, I'm sick to my stomach that the Whelans have been left behind again. This is at least the third time in 2 presidencies. And I guess I wonder about the wisdom of putting a bunch of celebratory photos on Twitter when you just left, a Marine behind for the second time.
5 minutes.
I was struck, and thank you for joining us, given your expertise on this. We really appreciate it. I was really struck by, a lot of folks in your position and a lot of folks, for example, Lee Whelans, who was on the former National Security Council in the Clinton administration, said there's a real risk here, right? And this was the Biden administration moving forward, not necessarily in tandem with what, the Justice Department would do and what American policy often is. And he says the risk when something like this happens is that it can incentivize foreign powers to grab Americans off the street and, throw them in jail to have leverage, right? But the Biden administration was clear they were going to do this. They wanted to do this. Can you speak to how you weigh those two things, right?
I don't know how to weigh them properly because I've never been a government official doing it. But I will say I've talked to a ton of experts on this. There's absolutely no empirical evidence whatsoever that making these deals increases hostage taking. I think what increases hostage taking is our stubborn unwillingness to impose any costs on the hostage takers. And in order to stop this problem, we've got to cause pain for the people that are doing it and those they love.
So listen, I just want to report that what we're hearing from our sources at the White House and our sources in Washington, and I quote here, and perhaps you can weigh in on this as well. It says, this is a quote, "This was the only deal that we could make right now," according to a senior administration official. President Joe Biden was personally involved and in constant touch, and his team with the deal on this. And they said that what they were trying to do was give the green light to personally execute this trade. They said that this was the right deal to make at this time, but notably that the deal would only be, this was the only one that we could do, the only one that we can make. So maybe people are wondering why not Paul Whelan, why this particular issue. They thought that this was the right one at this time. Do you agree with that?
I don't know if it's the right one. It is entirely possible that this is the only deal that they could get, and in which case they had a moral obligation to do it. But at the same time, you sit and you look at Paul Whelan having been there, 14-something hundred days and in bad health, in and out of the hospital, and we didn't get him, right? It is possible that it was impossible to get him this time. But I guess that doesn't really, it's cold comfort for the Whelan family, and I still just feel sick to my stomach while being absolutely thrilled for Brittany Griner, because as you know, Don, I was on your other show frequently. I've been terribly worried about her.
I wonder if this is maybe some hope for Paul Whelan, though.
I
maybe
hope
for
so.
his family. Yeah.
I hope so.
I sure hope so. And I think you've got to remember what the Russian propaganda on Paul Whelan is. It's that he's almost like the greatest spy of all time. So that may complicate the negotiations. I don't know. I wasn't a part of them. But I know, the Reeds are heartbroken this morning as well that Paul is not back. And, we're all praying for the Whelans and just absolutely overjoyed for the Griners.
Yeah, we know, when it comes to Paul Whelan, we do expect President Biden will have to address that. He'll get asked about that when he speaks to reporters about Brittany Griner's release.